Hey there, all you Happenin' Hamel fans! Welcome to Broadway by Ghostlight. I'm Mark Bonatti, and today I had the absolute pleasure of sitting down with Mike Anthony, who's written a new book, Life at Hamilton. This book is so amazing. Mike is the bar manager of the Richard Rodgers Theater, where Hamilton has been playing on Broadway since 2015. And as you can imagine, he has some of the most incredible, heartwarming, jaw dropping stories about his time there,
I like stories.
and also his journey from wanting to be a performer to becoming Broadway adjacent, as I like to say, and working as the bar manager on Broadway. In this interview, we'll talk about if Lin has read the book and what he thinks, his thoughts on Hamilton and what it means for the Broadway stage, the reopening, and we'll find out who was the biggest tipper. And let me tell you, it's a doozy.
I think we better start our interview.
Hello, Mike Anthony. Thank you so much for coming on Broadway by Ghostlight today.
Such a pleasure, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Oh man, so this bad boy is such an amazing book.
Thank you.
You and we actually share a very common story, which I think is paramount in this book. The tagline is sometimes you throw away your shot only to find your story. And I also went to New York to be an actor, to be a performer, and then got involved in the Broadway adjacent world, as we used to like to say. Uh, so tell me about your journey to becoming a bartender at the Richard Rodgers Theater.
Yeah. I certainly didn't grow up thinking, someday I'm going to be a bartender. That was not in the plan. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, of course not.
I mean, it's fine if that's who you are.
Absolutely.
People who do grow up thinking that's awesome. It wasn't my thing. In fact, I was so not a bartender that when I first got the job, I mean, I knew nothing about it whatsoever. Nothing. I had been doing a play with a bunch of people who worked as Broadway bartenders, and at the end of the run, they're like, "Hey, do you want a job?" And I was like, "Yeah, man," because at that time I was doing temp work, and I have no skills. Basically, I have no skills of any kind. So I was getting paid $11 an hour to do soul sucking, like envelope stuffing in a windowless room, and so I was like, "Sure, I'll take that job." And then the first night working, I'm also an actor occasionally, and I've been on stage in front of thousands of people before, no problem, totally under control, no problem. I have never been more nervous than I was bartending that first night. It was at Tarzan, and intermission happened, and all of these people are coming at you, and I like instantly am having heart palpitations, I'm sweating, and somebody during that intermission asked me for a Cape Cod. And I was like, "Oh, sorry, we don't have the stuff for that." And he was like, "Oh, well, do you have any vodka?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, that I have." And he said, "Okay, how about cranberry juice?" "Yeah, I have that right here on the gun. That's no problem." And he's like, "Okay, I'll take a vodka cranberry." So I made his drink, and then he walked away, and I was working beside my manager, and she was like, that is a Cape Cod. So I went home like that night and bought a Bartending for Dummies book. So yeah, I got into it, like so many of us do. I moved to New York after undergrad to be an actor, and was doing a bit of that, and then decided I wanted to get myself even further into debt. So I went to grad school for acting as well to get an MFA. Moved back to New York, and that's when I started working for a company called Sandbar Concession, which services the 8, now 9 Nederlander theaters on Broadway.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I had a similar journey with merchandise, but it's nice to be at least in the building.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I write about it in the book that the first day I walked into the stage door, because, at some of the theaters we have to enter through the stage door, and it was the Rogers, where Hamilton is now. And the first day I walked through that stage door, I was like, I could not have been more excited. I could not have been more excited if I were starring in the show, just to walk through that door. And I remember looking over my shoulder, like hoping people were seeing me, like, "Yeah, I'm going through the stage door.
Right?
That's right. I work
I'm allowed to be here. That's right." Totally.
So yeah, and that part is great, being around theater, especially, again, as I said, the day jobs I'd had before that, so to do this job, to be around people who love what I love, was fantastic, and also difficult at times, which I also write about in the book.
Yes, absolutely. It's you're so close and yet so far away. I know
Yeah.
that feeling.
Yeah, I mean, it's happening right there on that stage. You can touch it, and
Mhm.
and it can be hard to be that close to something that you wanted, and to not be actually doing it.
I totally feel you. So Hamilton comes to the Richard Rodgers, and everything changes for you, for theater, for the world. It's a big, giant smash hit.
Holy cow! Holy cow! Yeah.
My goodness. So when was the first time you saw the show? Did you see it off Broadway or know of it before it came into the theater?
I knew of it because, it was impossible to not be hearing the buzz that was happening from the run that was down at the public. Actually, I was on my way out of bartending. I'm thinking, okay,
Mm,
I'm like 30, whatever, 40 years old. Maybe it's time. I was actually thinking about going back to school because initially, before acting, I had initially planned on being a high school teacher, high school science teacher.
mm.
So I was thinking, I might go back and finish up those degrees and be a teacher. And then I start hearing this buzz about Hamilton, and there are whispers happening that it might be coming to our theater, to the Rogers, which, Lynn loved the Rogers from In the Heights.
In the Heights, right?
And I was like, well, and the buzz, people are saying this is a masterpiece. This is going to change the face of Broadway. I mean, that buzz was happening really early on. So I thought maybe I'll stick around for another month just to see what this really is. And of course, I've now been there for the whole, now we're in our, 5 years, 6 years. And it completely changed the face of Broadway. I mean, the closest thing that I can recall that I've been even anywhere near to was maybe Rent, which had a big,
Mm,
I remember when I was in high school, like kids that I went to school with would like drive down to, I live in Connecticut, they drive down to New York on Friday nights and like sleep on the sidewalk to be there for the
yes,
lottery on Saturday. But Hamilton took that and then multiplied it by many magnitudes.
absolutely. Well, and in the
Um,
social media age too, I'm sure it
right, right.
helped.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it entered the sort of just the general zeitgeist in a way that I don't know that any Broadway show, at least in our lifetimes, probably ever has. I mean, it really became just this juggernaut, this crazy juggernaut.
Yeah, it brought so many people, brought such a spotlight to Broadway that even though it's always Broadway's always been Broadway, but I mean everybody knows Hamilton.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It really transcended like all of any barriers that there might be between
absolutely.
human beings and Broadway or musical theater. I mean, I can't tell you how many people have told me, one of the nice things about doing our job is that we get to communicate with
Yes.
the audience, and we really get to pick up on what the vibe is. And I cannot tell you how many people I've talked to that have said, I've never been to a show before. I've never been to a Broadway show before. I mean, it brought in so many brand new people. There's a story I tell in the book about these guys. They were enormous people. And I hate to stereotype or generalize, but they were so big and massive bits of humanity that I jokingly said, my gosh, did you guys meet on a football team? Because, I mean, they were like 6'8" and
Right.
enormous. And they said, actually, yeah, they played for some Division 1. They were the offensive linemen for some Division 1 football team. So these guys were like the real deal, like one step away from making it to the pros. And
Amazing.
they were saying on the way in, they're like, yeah, our girlfriends dragged us here. They were clearly not excited to be at Hamilton. They were doing a favor for their girlfriends. And then at intermission, one of the guys came back and his eyes are all pink. And I was like, oh, how's the show?
Mhm.
And he was like, dude. And he was just totally blown away. So yeah, it's really brought in a whole new group of people. It's just reached so many people.
Absolutely. And you got to witness a bit of the rehearsal process for the show.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was amazing. I mean, I would find any reason I could to be at the theater when I didn't have to. Luckily I'm
Rightfully
the
so.
yeah, being the bar manager, it's easy for me to say, hey, I got to go in and take care of this or that. I have an office in the theater. So I was there just as much as possible. I can't tell you how many times I was like cleaning off the same bar. Just got to make sure this
Just-
bar is really good and polished. Just got to make sure because, a lot of times when they're working through tech issues during the preview period, the cast will be right out there in the lobby, which is where my bar is,
Right.
rehearsing. They bring the piano right out there and they rehearse. So I was just a fly on the wall. And yeah, one of the stories I tell in the book, Lin was sitting on the steps beside my bar, and he was working on this line. And I wish I could remember exactly which one it was. It was before I had seen the show. But he was working on this line, and he kept on just doing it over and over again. And he was like slightly changing the rhythm or the words, and it felt like, I'm like, oh my God, I'm like watching Shakespeare write a sentence right now.
I mean, exactly.
Like,
that must have been, I can't even imagine. I got goosebumps just thinking about it.
Incredible. And you knew it in the moment. I mean, that was one of the special things about Hamilton. A lot of times a piece of art, there's the famous adage that an artist's artwork isn't worth anything until they're long gone. A lot of times we don't always value art in the moment as much as we will eventually. But with Hamilton, it's like people knew. They knew right away. That cast knew, I think, that they had captured this lightning in a bottle. So yeah, being able to witness some of that creative process, and Lin, every once in a while, he would change a line during the show. He would during the preview period before the show is locked, things can change. And it was really, I just felt very lucky to have been around it.
That's incredible. You talk a lot. I mean, obviously, every celebrity on the planet came to see this show, and they don't often stop at merch booths, but I bet every celebrity stops at the bar. So you've gotten to talk to, I mean, Barack Obama, Aretha Franklin. You talk about so many amazing people, but you also include a lot of stories of regular mortal folks, so to speak.
Yeah.
There's one story in particular about a little girl. I don't know if you know what story I'm talking about, who didn't know what show she was seeing.
Oh, God. Yeah, I know.
I love that story.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the stories about the celebrities are fun and everything. And honestly, between you and I and your listeners, I was not going to include all of those. It was my editor who was like, I really, this is what people want to hear. So I included more of them than I actually intended to, because to me, it really is those daily interactions with people, celebrity or not. That was the important thing. It was just watching how it was affecting human beings on an emotional level. And yeah, the story that you're referring to, I was like, done for the day after this happened. It's like, I gotta go home. There was a young woman who was blind, and she was probably, she was like a young teenager, and her parents hadn't told her where they were yet. They were surprising her with something, and they hadn't told her. So they're standing there in the lobby, and I could hear everything, because how sometimes we'll bring people in early for what, if there are, accessibility issues and things like that, we'll get them in and seated before the big rush of people comes in. So it was just very quiet in the lobby when this was happening. So she's standing there, and she's like, "Come on, Mom," like a typical 13, 14-year-old teenager. And she's like, "Okay, we're at Hamilton." And the girl instantly lost control of her body. She collapsed into her mom's arms and was sobbing. And like, I was like, so then I'm a fairly emotional guy. It doesn't take a whole lot to get me teary eyed, and seeing that, I'm like, oh my God,
I would have been a mess.
Yeah.
I would have absolutely been a mess. So you have all these amazing stories, not only from Hamilton, but from all the years at the Richard Rodgers, around your brain. And I'm sure everyone is, through all the years, have been telling you, oh, you got to write a book. You got to write a book. What actually pushed you to write a book?
Yeah, it actually happened. I feel like I had very little to do with all of this. This was all the universe and some really lovely, amazing people that came into my life that made this all happen. I had started, in my years working on Broadway, I would every once in a while post something on Facebook if something interesting happened. And then once Hamilton came around, interesting stuff was happening all the time. So I'd find myself on the train ride home at night. It was like an hour-and-a-half train ride after I moved to Connecticut a few years ago, just tapping out on my little notes app on my phone these stories that I'm thinking my mom and my sister and close friends are gonna read, if anyone. And at that time, I was not paying attention to Facebook privacy settings, and my settings were all on public. So the story started to get shared. And then pretty soon I'm getting like messages and things from people I don't know. And I'm like, what's going on here? And then I realized, that it was because the people were sharing them, and because of my settings, they could just go anywhere at all. So there a little bit of a group sort of grew up on Facebook, mostly around these stories, this kind of great little support group, who were reading them and sharing them. And eventually, I wrote a story about what happened when Mike Pence came to the show.
Mm-hmm.
Not to get super political on your show, but that was like a big story, because the
Yes.
president-elect at the time, whose name I won't mention, tweeted something about it, and that caused this big, sort of uprising amongst his followers who were protesting on the show, and it became like a national story. So I wrote something that night, a very brief thing about an interaction I had with Mike Pence, very simple, short thing. And I'm bartending later that night, and my phone was like getting hot in my pocket. And I'm thinking there must be something wrong with the battery. And after intermission, I take it out, and I have thousands of notifications. And this is the first time this has ever happened to me. And that post had gotten shared on a huge Pantsuit Nation, a big group, a big Facebook group that has like millions of members, I think. And it got shared there. And so like hundreds of thousands of people were commenting and liking it and sharing it. And so that was really sort of, I think, the event that really grew the Facebook following. And that's how it all started. And one of the people who followed on Facebook is a woman named Stephanie Good, who is a writer. She's a New York Times bestselling author, and she wrote to me and said, "Listen, I'd like to take these stories to my agent." And I was like, "Oh God, okay." And at that time, I was very freaked out about that. And honestly, it still weirds me out to think about people that I don't even know reading these things, because I had not considered, I had not thought of myself as a writer. Certainly not one that was publishable. I was writing these simple stories, not at all thinking about the grammar or the vocabulary or anything else. I'm just telling these simple stories. So to the idea of like a professional in the industry reading them made me very nervous.
I can imagine.
And then so once she did that, and the agent liked it and everything, and became my agent, and they decided to publish the book, I wanted to ask Lin, just to make sure. And obviously the book is nothing but glowing reviews for Hamilton. It's all positive stuff, but I still wanted to just sort of get his blessing.
That was definitely one of my questions. Has Lin read the book, and what did he think? Tell me.
Yeah. So I wrote to him, and never really even thinking I was going to get a response. I've known Lin for years now because I met him during In the Heights, but I mean, he knows my face. I had no idea if he even knew my first name, So I wrote to him, having no idea if he was going to respond or know who this person was, or if he even reads his emails. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm sure he gets all sorts of fan mail and everything, but he wrote back like immediately, and he was like, "Mike, hey man," and I was like, "Oh my God." That was shocking, just that he wrote back and that he claimed anyway to know me. And I said, "Yeah, so I'm writing this book, and I just wanted to let you know." And I said, "I can send you a sample story if you'd like, just to get a feel for what the book is going to be." And I'm thinking, this will be safe. I can pick the absolute best story. I can perfect it, make sure it's written beautifully, and I'll send him that one. And he wrote back saying, "Actually, can you just send me the whole book?" And again, I panicked, and I called the editor, and I was like, "Listen, Lin wants to read the whole book. I think it's a mistake. Let's not do this. Never mind. I don't." The idea of sending my writing to the Shakespeare of our time, someone who I write about the word genius. We use this word a lot, but he, in my opinion, is an actual literal genius. His brain behaves in a way that the average human brain just doesn't. And the idea of sending my writing to someone of that level was very incredibly intimidating. So much so that I was almost I'm trying to like find a way around it and even thinking maybe this is a bad idea. But anyway, I sent him the book, and of course he's this great guy, and so he read the whole book, and he even gave me some notes, some minor adjustments he wanted to see, and he could not have been kinder about it. So yeah, he's he's a special dude.
That's amazing and so good to hear because you never know.
You never know. I mean, you never know. And I tell the story about how when I first met Lin, I had no idea who he was, obviously, and in my defense, at that time, not a whole lot of people did. That was back at In the Heights, and I called him the cup guy in the show because he had come up to ask for souvenir cups, and I'm thinking he works for, maybe he works backstage, maybe he's a merchandise seller that I hadn't met. And in the book, I call him cup guy, and when he writes back, and if he writes an email to me now, he'll sign it cup guy.
That's amazing. That's so funny.
Yeah.
So, simple question with a difficult answer. If you want people to take away anything from your book, what do you think that would be?
I think that, I didn't know exactly what the theme of the book was going to be. I had all of these sort of disparate stories. They tend to be uplifting in nature, but other than that, they're all sort of separate vignettes. And in trying to figure out how to tie this all together, I wrote the beginning of the book that tells a little bit about how I ended up at Hamilton and everything. And I think what the subtitle is about is really the message, I think, of the book. Sometimes you throw away your shot only to find your story, meaning that, we all have these goals, right, in life. Everyone has a certain mountain they think they want to climb. And they think when they get to the top of that mountain, okay, now I'm going to be satisfied. I'll have happiness and that'll be that. And as we know, there are people who climb mountains their whole lives, and sometimes they reach the highest summit that there could possibly be, and there's still a hole somewhere inside. He will never be satisfied. And what I discovered throughout this process is that though I'm not up on that Broadway stage as I had wanted to be since I was in high school, once I stopped sort of focusing on where I wasn't, I started to focus on where I was. And even though it was just behind a bar, and I say that very carefully because, again, if you're a bartender and that's all you do in your entire life, that is wonderful. You know what I mean? If you are happy doing that, that is fantastic. So I don't want to say just a bartender in that way,
Right.
But you can be doing almost anything. And if you're truly present in that moment, the moment tends to open up and new feelings can come in and new things will come in. If you're able to let go of sort of the predetermined places that you thought you were trying to get to, and just be in your shoes right there, right now. That was when I started to find my genuine happiness. And of course, spiritual leaders have been saying this for thousands and thousands of years,
right.
that it's the power of now. The present moment is where true happiness is. And of course, now is the only thing that actually exists. So that's the point. And then the other thing I'll say is that, we're told that we can be whatever we want to be, and I write about this in the book a bit, that I wanted to play for the Red Sox when I was a little kid. I wanted to be a professional Major League Baseball player. My arm will not throw above 65 miles an hour. I was not going to be throwing a 95-mile-an-hour fastball in the major leagues. I just am not going to do it. But though we can't necessarily be anything that we want to be, we can keep finding things that we do want to be. And one of those things we're going to be able to do really well, and it's going to light us up inside. And once that happens, it affects the world around you too. And that's what started happening writing these stories. I mean, I've had friends say, you're so lucky that you'd witnessed all of these things. And it's not that these beautiful things were happening more often in front of me than they were in general. It's just that I happened to be paying attention to them in those moments. because I was again being super present. So I guess that's the long-winded answer to your
That's
question. Is that
beautiful. That's beautiful. I think motivational speaking is going to be the next venue for you. That was amazing. I loved all that. Um, all right. So now just some fun questions, no
okay?
pressure. So you have gotten to be there for the whole run of Hamilton and see many different casts and performers. Besides the original cast, what are some performers or performances that really stick out?
To be honest, after the first few months, I barely got to see the show. I was
I'm,
like
I'm sure.
constantly, I was out in the lobby, so I can't speak very intelligently to that. Eventually, I was going in. The only time I was really going in often was at the end, because I just loved. I wasn't even watching the stage anymore. I was standing in that, in the doorway,
Mhm.
turning this way because I loved seeing like all of the hankies come out and the eyes being dabbed and everything. So I can't, I can't speak intelligently to that. I'll say that there's always a magic around the original
Mhm.
cast. There's something that is developed together there, and it kind of grows up together, the show. And I thought when David was leaving, especially, I was thinking, man, I wonder if this show is going to be able. I wonder if it's going to be the same thing as
Mhm.
it was once all of these people leave. Because then we lost Leslie, Lynn, and Pippa. I think all on the same night, if memory serves. I think those three
So,
all left together. So the next day, I'm thinking, that so Javi was going into play Hamilton, and I can't even remember actually now who was replacing Pippa. Flippa Sue and Leslie Odom Jr. But I did watch that first night after that sort of mass exodus, and I was so relieved to find that the show was still the show.
mhm.
The magic of Hamilton um, is the writing itself. Of course, it takes massively talented people to pull it off, but
Stands on its own.
it stands on its own. I mean, the structure is there. The wings of the show, the skeleton of it is what really makes it fly. I've loved. There isn't a performance. I wouldn't say that there's anyone that has come in that I've thought they're bad. This doesn't work with this person. And everything works to a greater or lesser degree. Nothing's ever
Right.
perfect, but um, by and large, the reason the show has stayed so successful is because and and now we have how many tours out there as well,
Yeah.
and as well as the sit downs in a couple of cities, which there are a lot of talented people in this world. So that's what it tells me, because you have this really elevated material, and you do have to find people that can match that material, and they are finding it. They are definitely finding it. So yeah, I can't pull out any particular person or that has come in, but by and large, I think just the level of the show has absolutely maintained. And I want
Amazing.
to I want to just send this out into the atmosphere, to manifest this. Now, of course, I have zero inside information on this. This is purely my own instinct that I was thinking a couple of months into the shutdown. Wouldn't it be neat if, when we come back, some of that original cast came back for a bit to sort of reignite Broadway? If we could get
Okay.
Lynn back, Chris Jackson, David. I mean, if we could get some of those, wouldn't that be kind of a
That would be
fantastic
very
way?
cool.
So I'm just putting that out there into the ether, trying
That's
to manifest it.
that's I think that would be I think that would be good. So let's see. What celebrity has been the biggest tipper?
Oh, that's an easy one. Yeah, I write about this in the book. Amy Schumer, who is a fantastic actress, comedian, and she was a bartender. When back in the day when she was a starving artist. So she is a huge fan of the show, and she's been multiple times. And the very first time that she came to the Rogers, because I think she'd also seen it downtown
Mm.
at the Public. But the first time that she came to the Rogers, she had gone to the bathroom during intermission, or she waited right until the very end. So the second act was going on, and the lobby was empty. And she came up with a friend of hers, and she was having a very good time, and hung out with us for like 30 minutes at the bar, maybe like 15 minutes at the bar, just laughing and joking. And she was just could not have been more down to earth and genuine. Lovely, lovely woman. And she got like a soda, I think, and tipped us $80 on this drink,
Wow.
And Richard, and one of our bartenders, a guy named Richard, is like, hey, this is ridiculous. No, no, no. And she, of course, but that turned out $80 to be just the beginning. She came back another time and tipped $1,000, which ended up becoming a big story. And so I was being interviewed for Good Morning America, and all of those sort of syndicated national shows. So it was a fun little story. But what people don't know, and I write about this in the book, is that Amy came back again. And this time she sent her sister up to the bar, and I did not recognize her sister. And again, it was after intermission. So I'm like breaking down the bar, and this woman comes out of the bathroom and she asks for a water. And water is $5, an incredibly ridiculous $5 on Broadway. So she bought the water, and I swiped her card, and then I said, enjoy the rest of the show. Typically, we have to have them sign the receipt, but it was only $5, and I didn't want her to miss another moment of Hamilton. Again, having no idea who this was, but I don't want anyone to miss a second of Hamilton to sign a receipt for a $5. Right. So I knelt back down I was putting stuff away in the refrigerator, and then I look up and I notice she's still standing there, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. Did you need something else?" And she said, "No, I just wanted to give you a tip." And I was like, "Oh my God, that is so sweet to miss any of Hamilton, to give a guy a tip on a $5 bottle." So I printed out the receipt, put it on the bar, thanked her, and then knelt back down to continue putting stuff away. Later on, I'm going through the receipts and I'm closing everything out. And I get to this receipt for this $5, and there is a tip on it for $2,000. The total is $2,005 for that bottle of water.
Holy shit. Holy shit.
And we eventually found out that that was Amy's sister. So I went inside and waved to Amy. She was sitting right in the orchestra level there, and she had tipped us now $2,000.
Holy moly! Yes, that is an easy answer to that question.
Yeah,
goodness, that's amazing. So you've been at the Richard Rogers for a long time. Besides Hamilton, is there another show or two that you feel like you could write a book about, with all the stories that went on?
Gosh, they've all run together so much in my mind now. I mean, In the Heights, I was absolutely in love with that show. I mean, it's blasphemous to say, but I have a hard time saying that I prefer Hamilton to In the Heights. I love In the Heights. I mean, I was dancing. I would stay, that bartenders typically can leave just about right after intermission, almost as soon as we break down and everything, unless they have code room. Yeah. So, and that's usually what I had done. I would leave after intermission. In the Heights, I stayed like every night to watch the end of the show. I just absolutely loved that show. But there's been something special that has happened at every show that I've worked at. And again, I had been writing whenever something like that happened. So when I go back, Facebook has this feature, you can go back and look on your timeline through like many years ago. Mm-hmm. And I have this neat little journal that I can go back and look at about different things that happened along the way. So yeah, every show has been interesting in one way or another. Even Tarzan, which was not the best show.
Those first 10, 15 minutes of that show were extraordinary. That was such a cool opening, and then So we've got our coming back date, September 14th, right? Have you gotten your marching orders?
Oh my God. Yeah, we're there, right now we're just waiting to see what the equity guidelines are going to be for face mask wearing, because obviously it'll depend on whether or not people can be drinking and eating in the theater.
Mm.
So the concessions is still trying to figure that out. I have some friends who are running shows off Broadway right now, and they are allowing people. They still have to wear masks, but they're allowing people to have drinks and snacks inside. They just have to use a straw under their mask to drink. I have a feeling, and I'm going to knock on wood here, that if the vaccination rates continue apace and the steep decline in cases keeps happening, I feel like that by September there's a chance that we can be pretty much back to normal, especially if they require vaccination. If they require you to be vaccinated to come into the theater in the first place, or maybe to show that you've have a negative test, a quick,
Right.
a rapid test from that day. And if we're able to do that, then I think there's a good chance that things can be pretty much look like normal. And man, I just cannot wait for that. I
What
mean,
do you
I
think
think
that first performance back is going to be like?
you just asking that question like gives me chills because, um, you know, Broadway is special always, right? People like us who spend so much time around it, we know the magic that happens in those theaters, and we appreciate it. But an event like this worldwide shutdown by Mother Nature really, I think, is going to recalibrate our gratitude and appreciation scales. And I think that the first night that we're back together in a theater like this, and we're able to look around. I mean, I just know, like, I ran out of my cat's food this morning, and I was actually excited when I thought, oh, I have to go get some cat food. I'm going to get to go out and see some people at the pet store. Like I'm actually excited about that. I think that when we're in a theater together and those lights are about to go down and that the conductor stands up and that first note is struck. I mean, really, I think it's going to be. I think I'm going to be weeping. I think I'm going to be maybe even sobbing potentially. I think it's going to be an absolutely extraordinary night. I think it's going to surpass possibly any night that I've had at the theater so far. I really do think it's going to be like that.
It's going to be incredible. And let's hope Amy Schumer's there.
Please, goodness, I could sure use it after this year. I could use an Amy Schumer tip.
I know Amy's a huge fan of my channel and watches all the time, so
no doubt.
Get the message. So, where can people get this amazing, amazing book?
It's available. Thank you so much. It's available at Amazon.com and also my website, which is MikeAnthony.com.
Great. Both of those links will be in the description of this video. Oops, I just had a light fall. Live-ish. This is not live theater, but it's live something. Thank you so much, Mike Anthony, for coming on Broadway by Ghostlight today. All the best in reopening and with the book, and everyone should check it out because it's so fun and interesting, but also uplifting and just such a warm feeling, and it's a feeling we all could use right now. So check out the book. Mike
Thank
Anthony,
you so much, Mark.
So much, and I hope to see you at the bar someday soon.
I look forward to that so much. Thank you so much for having me. Your drinks, even if you want a Cape Cod, that will be on me. I can now do that.
I'm going to find the most complicated drink I could possibly think of. No. Thank you so much, and I'll see you when the next book comes out. Part 2.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you again to Mike Anthony for coming on today. I hope you all enjoyed that interview. I sure had a great time talking to him. Be sure to pick up Life at Hamilton. The links are in the description. You can get it right now. It's out and it is wonderful. I highly recommend it. Thank you all again so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and let me know down in the comments. If you want to see more interviews with people, I have lots of friends in high places.
Do you then?
Yeah, totally.
I could try to get them to come on the channel. If you want to see some of that content, let me know. That's the only way I'm going to know. Give this video a like, subscribe, all that fun jazz. This is Broadway by Ghostlight. I'm Mark Bonanni. I'll see y'all next time.